All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session. In today's session, we will look into the Backbone MVC framework. Okay, first thing is what is a MVC framework? MVC is Model View Controller. Just I will show you some online resource. So first we'll understand what is a model view controller. This is a technique. It is a software design pattern used for the designing of the web applications, where we have a model, a view, and the controller, and all the programming aspects has been divided into this view. As the name suggests, it will take care of the all the displays on the whatever the output that goes on the browser, right? Those pages that will be taken care by the view. You can see this is the diagram, how they interact. So view, user sees all the views, and whatever the user actions, those actions are taken care by the controller. So when we say the actions, what are the different actions? That would be there can be some kind of a logic, some kind of a processing that has to run, some kind of a processing inbuilt that has to be executed in order to produce some kind of a output, okay, which will result in some kind of a change in the state, and that change in the state is maintained in the model. So model is a representative of it holds on to the all the data structures, data elements. So model will be the point. Using this model, we can convert that model into the views. So based on what type of a model we are interacting, we can easily convert that into the view. That is how whatever the controller that does the processing, let us say user action, user will click on a certain button, or a certain he initiates certain event that will require certain processing, and then the output will be different, because it is going to fetch. Let us say we have a web application where we are going to search for particular books, okay, and you put the keyword user action on the view. He will put the keyword. For example, he will put the keyword as a PHP programming, and okay, PHP programming, and he clicks on the search button. Now the action inside here is like it is going to check. The controller will take up that request. It will start processing. It will make a connection to the database, gets the data, and it will have a new updated information with all the list of the books that are related to PHP programming. That is the a model. That information is converted into an view, that is a HTML. So that new HTML page will be rendered. That is what the users will see. So this is the most widely used design pattern, model view controller. You can see here the definition. Model component of pattern. It is the application's dynamic data structure independent of the user interfaces. So it is independent of the user interface, means view is the one which will take care of all the user interface, directly manages the data, logic, and tools of the application. View is any representation of information, that is the page what it gets displayed on the browser, such as chart, diagram, or table. Multiple views of the same informations are possible, such as bar charts for management and tabular view for accountants. So that is the basically view, and controller accepts the input and converts it into commands for the model or the view. So it will take the input, and that model can be converted into a view. Okay. So that is the model view controller architecture. Using backbone we can easily implement the MVC in our web application development. So MVC framework that further abstracts the JavaScript with libraries intended to adhere more closely to the MVC model. So the backbone what we have is it is the JavaScript library which will help us to build the MVC kind of a application, the applications which will be having a MVC implementation. And the libraries are available from this website. This is the official website of the backbone framework, that is backbonejs.org. And how to include the backbone library into your application. You can use this two piece of code where you will specify you have to download these JavaScripts underscore hyphen min.js and backbone hyphen min.js. So using these two JavaScripts, you can implement the MVC, that is model view and controller. In Backbone, you build your client scripts around the concept of the models. And how do we create the models? By we have the in case of a Backbone, we have a backbone.model. By extending that backbone.model, and we are going to implement whatever the model related code into that particular piece of code. Backbone.js defines model as. So how it is defined? Model, the heart of any JavaScript application containing interactive data as well as a large part of logic surrounding it, conversions, validations, computed properties, access control. So all these forms as the part of the model. Models you define using the backbone must extend this one. So we have to extend backbone.model, and by extending that we will be having that particular model into our application model or models. So we can have many models. Most of the time what the design structure would be, the view is related to one model. So one model and the view they will be related, though that model will be converted into a view. In addition to models, Backbone introduces the concept of collections. Collections is nothing but it is the collection of the models, which are normally used to contain list of model objects. These collections have advanced features, and like a database can have indexes to improve search performance. So these collections have similar to database what indexes we have. We can include the indexes here. It has similar feature by which because we have the indices, the relatively the performance will be better. The way we are going to access the objects, it is search is done through the indices. A collection is defined by extending the backbone's collection object. In a backbone, we have a collection object using which we can extend and we can create a collection object. Backbone view. Views allow you to translate your models into HTML that is seen by the users. So what is a view? Whatever is the model that will be translated into an HTML that forms the view. They attach themselves to methods and properties of the collection and define methods that will be called whenever Backbone determines the view needs refreshing. So those methods are called, the method that is used is the render method. Whenever that render method is called, the view will be refreshed. You must always override the render method since it defines the HTML that is the output. So we have to override the render method. The render method is available as a part of the backbone view. When we extend that view to create our view, we have to override the render method, which will define the HTML output. This is a simple example. Here we have some album list, some kind of a album, and that album list is it extends the backbone dot collection. This album list is a collection, application collection created by extending the backbone dot collection, and it has a model travel album. And what is a travel album? Travel album is it is created by extending the backbone dot model. So travel album is a model which extends the backbone dot model, and it has some properties like a string, title, photo count, published or not published. So that kind of information is there, and this album is associated with a view. We have a travel album view which is created by extending the backbone dot view, and it has a travel album, and it has a method called the render. View has the render method. That render method will it will define the HTML output. Then we have the application, which also extends the backbone dot view, and it has the method initialize. Basically, in the initialize, what we do is we will set up the listeners. Okay, for certain events, we are going to set up listeners, and we are going to set up the handlers. And render method is the one which will have the HTML output. This is the for this particular UML, a simple code has been written. A detailed understanding of this code will take a detailed look into the backbone framework. Here we are going to understand at a very high level what is the a structure of this code. So we may not go into exact details of the syntax or why it is used, how it is used. It is just we are going to understand the basic structure of this code piece. Here is the example of a model, how to create a model in case of a backbone. Variable travel album is equal to backbone dot model dot extend. We are going to extend that. So that is how we are going to create the travel album model. And you can see this is the opening parenthesis and the closing parenthesis, inside which we have all the information about the model. Defaults, we have the title, new album, photo count is 0, published, true or false, the value is set as false. And this defaults, this defines the attributes of that particular model. And we have a function, comma, function to publish or unpublish. So toggle. Toggle is the name of the function. And what it will just toggle this information, whether it is a published or not published. This is the backbone collection example. This is how we are going to create the collection variable album list backbone.collection.extend. So this is how we are going to have the collection object. Album list is a collection object by extending the backbone.collection. And this is the opening bracket, this is the closing bracket, inside which we have the definition of the collection. Set the model type for the objects in this collection. So we have to set the models. Collection will be holding multiple models. We can have multiple models. Model colon travel album. Then get checked. That is the return any array with only with a published albums. So we have this get checked function, which will return whichever models are having a published albums. And we have here pre-fill the collection with some albums, and this is the code. So when I said the collection, it is the beginning of this bracket and closing of this bracket. Okay, and then I have a variable. I'm creating a new album list. So this is the this parenthesis opens here, it closes here. It has a model and it has a get checked function. And here we are creating a object of type album list. So variable albums is equal to new album list. So in this particular album list, we have two albums. Okay, new travel album. Okay, what is that travel album? So that is a model, right? So this album list is going to contain the different models. This is the first model we created using a new travel album. Inside the parenthesis, this is the opening parenthesis, this is the closing parenthesis. We have title as this one and photo count as 42, and separated by comma. Okay, next model, new travel album, we have title as this and photo count as 102. Now this album, this variable albums, it is a collection object. It is having two models. Okay, this is the first model and this is the second model. Then this is the example of a backbone view. How do we create the backbone view object? By extending the backbone dot view. Variable travel album view is equal to backbone dot view dot extend, and this is the opening parenthesis and this is the closing parenthesis, and inside which we have a key value pair, tag name li. So li is, you know, it is a list, right? Inside the order list, ordered list or unordered list, any kind of a list, you use li to list the items. Then events, click, and it is going to call a toggle album function. And we have a initialize method. As I told you, initialize method will set up the listeners, and that will be called first, so that it will all the event listeners will be attached. You can see here this model uh, change event, and this is going to call the render function, this dot render, and this is the render function, render colon function implementation. And this is the piece of a code we have here. Input type as a checkbox, value 1. Okay, so we have the title, and we are setting the property to checked or unchecked. Okay, and returning the object, then we, whatever the object we have, we are returning it. So whenever the render function is called, this is the HTML output that we are going to have it in the browser. Then toggle album. So whenever there is a click event, we are going to call this toggle album function. So what it will do, it will call this dot model dot toggle. So in the model we have a toggle function which will make it as published or unpublished. Let me show the model. Okay, in the model we have the toggle method. So it is basically, it will make it as published or unpublished. So it will toggle between the two. If it is published, it will make it as unpublished. If it is unpublished, it will make it as published. So this is the example of the view, backbone view, putting all together. So this is how we are going to combine the all the model view and the collection list. So we are creating the app, uh, main app, by extending the backbone dot view dot extend. So this app is nothing but, will, if you go to the UML, this is what we have already seen, this album list, then travel album we saw, and then travel album view. Now we are going to create the main application which will extend the backbone dot view, and all the code is put together here. Then you can see this is app is equal to backbone dot view dot extend, base the view on an existing element. So we have this body el colon body, and this is the initialize method. Okay, initialize method basically, as I told, it is used for setting the listeners and attaching the handlers. So in this case, it is a handler is render function. We have the render function, and this render will loop through all the published items, and it will display it on the browser. Okay, that is a brief information about the backbone code. Next, we will see the XML. Okay. What is XML? XML is a markup language, and XML is the most widely used because there is a certain syntax that is associated with it, but it is highly readable, human readable, as well as because there is no hard and fast syntax for the XML. XML can be created easily XML has a wide variety of applications. If two systems wants to communicate, let us say two different systems which do not have a common API, if they want to talk with each other, they can use the XML. Suppose if you want to read from a database where you don't have the particular API, you can convert it into an XML and read the XML. So XML application is in many places, and it is the most widely used structure for various applications. XML is a markup language, but unlike HTML, XML can be used to mark up any type of a data. That is the advantage of the XML. One of the key benefits of XML data is that a plain text, it can be read and transferred between the application, different operating system, as well as being human readable and understandable as well. So XMLs are very easily understandable by any human, because it is very intuitive. The way it is structured, it tells how the XML, what kind of a information it has and how it is structured. And whenever we want to, because it is a very plain text, any kind of systems can use XML based communication system, XML based processing system. Any system can use it. XML is not only used on the web server and to communicate asynchronously with the browser, but it is also used as a data interchange format for moving information between the systems. So it has a wide variety of the applications. Here, XML is used in many systems. For example, we have a web server here, and this is some knowledge management system. A request has been placed, and return we get some document management system use XML as a presentation neutral file format. So XML is a presentation neutral format. What is the presentation neutral format? It doesn't have any kind of a information which are related to the presentation. It is a plain text with required information. Another example is this one. This is the user. He sent a request for certain thing. Okay, and to determine the validity of the documents HTML, validator compares the document to an XML based schema file. So we will see this one. Based on a XML schema, we can translate that into an HTML. Then asynchronous request, we are getting some kind of asynchronous request to the web server. XML will be provided as a response. XML is commonly used as the data format in Ajax based applications. So if you are requesting any kind of information, okay, that information can be received as a XML document. This is external financial system. Again, there is a request, and in turn the responses. XML is often used as the data interchange format between different systems and applications. So here this external financial system is a totally different system, means a different framework or different platform, whatever that difference could be. These two can talk. Okay, web server and that external server can talk using a XML. Similarly, you can have an example. A request is coming from the system. Okay, and this is some kind of a DBMS system. One second. Okay, so we have a request coming in. Some DBMS system expert that in XML format to interpret with a computing system that do not support the available database API. For example, you don't have you are talking to a database, and there is no API which can talk to that database. Then what we can use is a XML. So we can use the XML format, and we can get the information from that database, and we can process it. So wherever there is no API declared, okay. For example, suppose if you want from Java, you want to connect to the any kind of a database. So JDBC is there, okay, and JDBC is created for, there are a driver for all the databases: Oracle database, MySQL database, Sybase, whichever kind of a database we have. JDBC has defined a driver. Let us say there is a some XYZ database where there is no driver available, then we can use the XML. Okay, using XML we can talk to that database and we can get the information. Well-formed XML. For a document to be well-formed XML, it must follow the syntax rules for a XML. So whenever we are creating a XML document, there are certain syntax rules that we must follow in order to create a well structured or the well-formed XML document. Element names are composed of any of the valid character. Most punctuation symbols and spaces are not allowed. So you can use any kind of a combination of the valid characters, and you can create the element name. Element's name can't start with a number. So you cannot start the element name using a number. It has to be a character. There must be a single root element. A root element, for example, in case of a HTML, what is the root element? The root element is the HTML itself. Similar to that, we must have a root element for the XML document. If you remember one of the lab programs where we displayed the student information, we created the XML. That XML had a root element as students. Okay, inside students, we had student element. Okay, inside the student element we had the other elements like a USN name, college, etc. Those. So that is how we must have a root element. A root element is one that contains all other elements. For instance, in HTML document, the root element is HTML. All elements must have a closing element or be self-closing. Means if we have created a one element called a student, we must have a closing element for that opening student element. How to have the closing element? Whatever the element name, so same element name will be you are using in the closing. Only thing is forward slash and the element name. Element must be properly nested. Okay, all the elements, whatever the structure you want to have, it should be properly nested. We must not have a overlapping elements. We can have lappings, nested elements, not the overlapping elements. Elements can contain attributes, so we can have attributes for the elements. Attribute values must always be within the quotes. If we are using the attribute values must be specified within the quotes. Element and attribute names are case sensitive. Means whatever the case you use, the same case will be used for the element. So it is a case sensitive. Means if you use student as a uppercase and student as a lowercase, those will be treated as two different elements. That is the what elements are and attributes are case sensitive. This is one example of a XML document. This is the header. You specify the version, then what kind of encoding you are using, that you will specify. So here is the root element. Root element is art. This is the opening of the root element, and this is the closing of the root element. Inside the art root element, we have many paintings. Okay, many painting elements. This is the beginning of the first painting element, closing of the first painting element, beginning of the next painting element, and ending of the second element, beginning of the third painting element, and the closing of the third painting element. So inside the painting element, I have more elements. I have a title, artist, then year and medium. There are four elements: title, artist, year, and the medium. And artist has again two elements. Those are the child elements: name and nationality. And name has a value of this right, Manet, and the nationality as the France. And similarly, every element you can see, there is a beginning of the title, closing of the title, beginning of the artist, closing of the artist, name, beginning, closing, nationality element, beginning, and the closing. So that is how your document should be structured. Now I have this painting element. Similarly, this second painting element and the third painting element. A valid XML document is one that is well formed and whose elements and component conform to the rules of either document type definition, that is called as a DTD, or it's a schema. Now, how to have a valid XML document? So we can have a document type definition, that is called as a DTD. We can do the validation of the XML whether it is written according to the DTD, right? So DTD will make sure that whatever the XML you want to process, you can parse that XML and make sure that particular XML is structured in that format. As I told you, we are using it for the for information passing between the two systems. Let us say, for example, from a database where we don't have a standard API, we are using the XML. Okay, when we are taking the XML for the processing, we have certain format for that XML. If that XML is in that format, then only we can consume it or we can process it. If that is a structure of the XML is not proper, or something else is present in there, then we cannot process it. Before processing that XML, we have to parse it. Once the parsing is successful, then only we can consume that particular XML. And that parsing can be done using the document type definition or by having the schema. A DTD tells the XML parser which elements and attribute to expect in the document, as well as the order and nesting of those elements. Now, uh, we will have a DTD which will tell which are the elements that are present, what is the sequence, and what are the suppose if any element has any siblings, that information is also will be available in the DTD. A DTD can be defined within XML document or within an external file. So there are two ways we can have the DTD: as a part of the XML itself or as a part of as a external file. If it is part of the XML, whichever process which is going to consume the XML, first it will parse using the DTD. It will read the DTD first. As per the DTD, it will validate whether XML is, it will parse the XML and it will make sure that it is according to the DTD. If it is according to the DTD, then it will consume that particular XML. This is the example of a data type definition, DTD. You can see here, this is the version of the XML type of encoding, and this is doc type. Doc type is the art. Okay, this specifies the root element and the square bracket. Then next we have a root element as a art. Okay, and art has many painting. So I will go back to the XML. This is the root element, and a root element has many painting element. Root art has many painting, and then next element is the painting, and painting has title, artist, year, medium. Now painting has title, artist, year, and medium. So painting has title, artist, year, medium inside the brackets. Then we have this ATT list, painting ID, C data, hash required. So then painting has a attribute list. attribute list as ID, and C data means this will not be parsed. Okay, this ID will be not parsed, and it is a required element. If you go back, this painting has a attribute ID. Okay, and this is a any character data. C data is a character data which will not be parsed. Then next, inside the painting, I have a element. Okay, element title and hash PC data. PC data is, this is a again character data, but it will be parsed. And next, after the title, I have an element called artist. Right, next element is artist, and inside the artist, I have name and nationality. I will go back to the XML. Inside the artist, I have name and nationality. Name and nationality, and the element name has a character data that will be parsed, and next element nationality, again it is a character data and it will be parsed. Then next element year, this data will be parsed. Next element is the medium. So then it is the closing of the DTD. So this is the closing element of the DTD. So this is the DTD using which we can parse the XML, whether the XML is created according to this particular order, and whether the data is required data is available or not, that can be checked. The main drawback with the DTD is that they can only validate the existence and the ordering of the elements. They cannot provide no way to validate the values of attributes or the textual contents of the elements. Okay, what DTD can do is it will validate the XML document. It will pass the and check whether the elements are existing, whether the elements are in the proper order defined in the DTD, but they cannot validate the values of the attributes. Suppose you want a pattern, certain value to be only characters or only numbers, that validation cannot be done using the DTD. For this type of a validation, we must use the XML schema. To solve that problem, we can use the XML schema. Using XML schema, you can even parse what values have been given. Suppose if you have year should be always a number. That can be parsed using the XML schema, not the DTD. Which have the XML schema have the advantage of using XML syntax, but unfortunately schemas have corresponding disadvantage of being long winded and harder for humans to read and comprehend. For this reason, they are typically created with the tools. So XML schema has an advantage of like you can do the parsing of the attribute, whether it will check whether that particular data is valid or not, but it has a disadvantage that it is like the schema definition will go longer description, and it is very difficult to understand looking at just the XML, for which because of its complication we have to use some kind of a tools to generate the XML schema for the particular XML. This is one example of a XML schema. XS is a XML schema. Attribute default. These are some default information that we have to provide. Then you can see XS. XS stands for the XML schema colon element. So we have the element name is equal to art. This is the root element, and this is a complex type. Okay. So complex type is what? It has a combination of all the different data types. And sequence. So this is the sequence. Then next we have the element name as a painting. Maximum occurs unbounded, means there can be n number of occurrences of this painting, and minimum occurrence 0, or there can be a 0 occurrence. That is the meaning associated with here. Then complex type, this painting. Then sequence. Okay, so every this tag has a corresponding closing on this side. Okay, then after the painting, okay, sequence, then we have element type as a access string title. Now you can see we have provided the title has to be of a type string. Next, element name artist, complex type sequence. Inside the artist we have name and nationality, and you can see name should be a string and nationality, the type data type should be a string. And this is the close of the sequence, close of the complex type, close of the access element. So this element closes here. Then we have next elements, that is year and medium. You can see year is a short integer and medium is a, again it is a string. Now it will be validated whether if let us say when you send the XML, inside the year you include some text, then it will fail the parsing because it expects a integer. Then these are the closing elements. This is the complete schema for the same XML that we saw earlier. XSLT XML style sheet transformation. XSLT is an XML based programming language that is used for transforming XML into other document formats. Okay, what is XSLT? Using XSLT we can convert XML into some other document. We can convert XML into HTML. We can convert XML into a Word document. We can convert XML into some other formatting. So XSLT, using XSLT programming, we can convert the general XML into any kind of a HTML. For example, here you can see we have XML data files, then we have XSL style sheets, okay, and we have XSLT transformation using XSLT processor. So it will take XML as well as XSLT and it will convert it into a required format. Maybe you want to convert it into a presentation format, okay, PPT format, or you want to convert it into a Word document, okay, or you want to convert it into a web format or the HTML format. We can do using the XSLT transformations. I will show you one web resource that is from W3 School. Here we have one simple example, displaying XML with XSLT. XSLT, Extensible Style Sheet Language Transformation, is the recommended style sheet language for XML. XSLT is more sophisticated than CSS. With XSLT, you can add, remove elements, attributes to or from the output file. You can also rearrange and sort element, perform tests, make decisions about which element to hide and display. So many things can be done using the XML, using the XSLT. So here is a one example of a XSLT. We'll see. This is the XML document. What is the XML document? We have breakfast underscore menu. Okay, that is the root element, and this is the closing of the breakfast underscore menu. So this is a simple XML. I have food inside breakfast underscore menu. I have food elements, beginning and closing. Inside the food, I have name of the food, price of the food, description of the food, and the calories that will be associated with this particular food. Means by consuming that food, you will intake these many calories. So we have many food elements. That is the XML document, and this XML document is converted into an HTML. So use XSLT to transform XML into HTML, okay, before it is displayed in a browser. So using XSLT, I am directly transforming XML into HTML. So this is the XSLT definition. This is the version encoding. Then this is the some of the basic information that we have to provide. Here body, okay, so from here it starts, okay, this is the body and I have given the style, and then XSL for each, select breakfast underscore menu / food. So what is this breakfast underscore menu? Is the the root element, I'm going to select food, and it is going to iterate. So similar to backbone, you have to study about the XSLT. So there are again, XSLT itself is a one knowledge base. It has to be explored. What is given in your syllabus is a very primitive basic information. In order to master XSLT, you have to go through like all the how XSLT can be written. All those things should be understood. This is one example. For hyphen each can be used to iterate through the elements. Breakfast underscore menu food, and inside that I'm going to create a div. A div has this particular style, then span, this is the style, then XSL value of select is equal to name. So inside food I have name, so it is going to fetch the name from the XML. So this is going to fetch the name from the XML. This is the closing span. Then again XSL colon value of select price, I'm getting the price here. Then again one more division, I have the styling here, then paragraph, and I am selecting the description of that particular food item. Again I will continue, I have the span element and select calories. Okay, then I have a text calories per serving, closing of a span, closing of a paragraph, closing of a division. Now for each, this is the end of the for each, this is the beginning. Now this will iterate through all the food elements. So if you have 10 food elements, this will be iterated through the all the element, and that body will be constructed. The body of the HTML will be constructed. So this is the beginning of the body, and this is the closing of the body and the closing of the HTML. This is how this particular XML, okay, this particular XML will be using this XSLT, and it will be transformed into HTML page. I will show you the HTML page. Transform the XML document with XSLT. We will have a XSLT processor which will transform the given XML into this format. Now you can see this is how the XML information is displayed. Okay, that's how you can have XSLT defined for one example you saw was transformation into HTML. Similarly, you can transform it into the required document, whatever the required format you have, you can transform. XSLT is also used on the server side as well as within the JavaScript. On the server side, we receive XML and XSLT files from the server or some other service. So we get both the XML and XSLT. We have XSLT processor. Using XSLT processor, whatever the definition is here, this XML will be converted. XML is transformed by the PHP based on the XSLT processor into HTML, and that HTML is sent to the browser. Similarly, this is on the server side, and this is by the JavaScript. Same, it receives the XML and XSLT. We have XSLT processor. XML is transformed by JavaScript based XSLT processor into HTML, and that HTML is sent to the browser, and it will be displayed on the browser. Example XSLT document that converts XML into HTML. So one example we already saw from the W3 schools. This is another example for our XML. Okay, this is the basic information about the HTML and XML. We have the body, opening of the body, closing of the body. Then I have H1, okay, header catalog. Then UL, unordered list, beginning and closing. Inside that, XSL for each. Select art / painting. We have the root element as art, and inside that we have the painting. For each painting, we have title, artist name, year, and a medium. So LI. So this is the beginning of the LI, and this is the closing of the LI. So inside the painting, what we have, first we are going to select the title. XSL value of select is equal to title. So I will just re-show you the XML, and then we come back to this page. Sorry. So we have painting. Inside that we have a title, artist / name, artist / nationality, then we have year and medium. Then we go back to XSLT, which converts it into HTML. So for art painting, we got the title, XSL value of select artist. Inside artist, we have name. We are going to get that value. Then year, we are going to select the year, and then we have the medium. Okay, this is the closing of li, and this is the closing of XSL for each. So this will iterate through all the painting. So we have three painting, it will iterate through three times. So we will three li listed inside the ul, then close of the body, close of the HTML. So this is how the XML parser will convert the XML using the XSLT. So here you can see it has replaced with all the title, the name, and the year and the medium. Okay, so 1 li, 2 li, 3 li. So this is how it will be. This HTML will be displayed on the browser. You can see catalog with the H1, then H2. This is the H2 and the other information. XPath is a standardized syntax for searching an XML document and for navigating to elements within the XML document. So another technology that we can use is a XML technology is XPath. And using XPath, we can directly programmatically we can manipulate the XML document, and we can programmatically access the XML different elements of the XML document. XPath is typically used as a part of a programmatic manipulation of an XML document in PHP and other languages. XPath uses a syntax that is similar to one used in most of the operating system to access the directories. So here is the example how XPath will be used. For example, I have XPath. I give the path as /art, that is the root element, painting, and inside the square bracket year greater than it should be 180, greater than 180. So it will greater than one year greater than 1800, 1800. So it will look for this particular year. Okay, inside art painting, where is the art painting? Art painting, inside it, it will look for the year, and also it will check year is greater than 1800. So this is greater than 1800. And also there is one more art painting, and year is 1907. It is also greater than 1800. And next it will check this painting and year 1784, which is less than the 1800. So it is going to select these two values. We are going to access these two values. Similarly, you can say /art painting at ID 192. So at ID, whichever ID, so this ID is 292, this ID is 192. Inside that, we are going to access the artist name. So it is going to get artist and this name. So it will get this particular element. Similarly, /art painting third painting, that is first painting, second painting, and this is the third painting, and ID. I'm going to access the ID. It is going to access the 139 value. So this is how you can using XPath we can easily access and manipulate the XML document. Next one is the XML processing. We will look into this in the next class.